TicketsCAD is a free, open-source, computer-aided dispatch system. It is built for the people who keep their community safe on a volunteer's budget, fire departments, ARES and RACES amateur radio groups, CERT teams, small EMS agencies, and campus security. In this guide, I will show you the single fastest way to get it running on your own server, using Docker. Here is the promise. In about 10 minutes, we will go from a plain empty Linux box to a fully working dispatch console, the web application and its database running side by side, brought up with a single command. You will not install PHP, you will not install Composer, and you will not install MariaDB. Docker packages every one of those pieces inside containers, so the only thing you set up on the host is Docker itself. Let us build it. Start with the prerequisites, and there are really only two. First, Docker Engine version 24 or newer. That is the runtime that actually runs the containers. Second, the Docker Compose plugin, the modern version you invoke as Docker Compose, two separate words rather than the older hyphenated Docker Compose. On Debian or Ubuntu, you can install both at once with Docker's official convenience script, shown here. It downloads the setup script and runs it as root. Give it a minute to finish. Then 2 small housekeeping steps, and you are ready. Add your own user to the Docker group so you can run Docker commands without prefixing every one of them with sudo, and then log out and back in, so that change takes effect. You will also want git installed to fetch the code, and roughly 2 GB of free disk for the images. That is the entire host preparation. Notice what is missing: no web server, no database, and no language runtime to configure by hand. Once the installer is done, confirm both pieces are present by asking each for its version. Docker -- version reports the engine, and Docker Compose version reports the plugin. If you see version numbers rather than errors, your host is ready. This is really the whole point of using containers. Instead of installing and matching a web server, a database, and a language runtime by hand, you let Docker deliver them, already assembled and tested, as images you simply run. Now, let us get the code. Clone the repository with git into a folder, I will call mine TicketsCAD, and change into it. If you list the contents, you'll find everything the deployment needs sitting right in the project root. There is the Docker file, which is the recipe for building the application image, the Docker Compose file, which wires the application to its database and defines the storage, and an example environment file, which we will turn into our own configuration in the very next step. Configuration is a single file. Copy the example environment file to one named .env. That exact name is what Docker Compose looks for and reads automatically, and open it in any text editor. I am using Nano here. Do not be intimidated by the list of settings. Every one of them already has a sensible default filled in, and for a first launch you only need to change a couple. Let us walk through the ones that matter from the top. The 2 settings you must change are the passwords. NewIDBPS is the password for the application's own database account, and dbrootPassword is the master password for the MariaDB server itself. Replace both of the placeholder values with strong, unique passwords of your own. These are what protect your data, so please do not leave them as the examples. The database name and user, just above them, are perfectly fine at their defaults. There is no need to touch those. 3 more settings are worth understanding before we launch. Leave ADMN password completely blank, and on first start, the system will generate a random one for you and print it to the log. We will pick it up in just a moment. Set NUI seed demo to true if you would like the system preloaded with sample incident types, units, and facilities to explore. And NUI port decides which port the application is published on. It defaults to 8081. Save the file and close the editor. You can also see a few settings we will leave alone for this evaluation. NUI base URL is the public address the app uses to build its links. For a real deployment behind TLS, you would set it to your HTTPS hostname. admin user and admin email. Name that first account. One important note, the admin settings and the demo seed flag only take effect on the very first install, against an empty database. They never rotate an existing installation's password. This is the moment everything has been leading to, a single command. Docker Compose up with -d to run it in the background, and --build to build the image first. Compose reads your environment file, then builds the application image, installing the PHP extensions and the Composer dependencies inside it. It pulls the MariaDB image, creates a private network and the named storage volumes, and starts both containers together, wiring them up for you. Be patient with that very first build. Because the base images have to download and the dependencies have to compile, it can take a few minutes. Every start after that is a matter of seconds. When it settles, run Docker compose apps, and you will see both containers up, the database reporting a healthy status from its own health check, and the application published on the port that you chose. The app waits for the database to be healthy before it starts. On that first start, the application quietly installs itself, and it is worth watching it happen. Follow along with the log, using Docker compose logs -f to keep following as new lines appear. You will see it wait for the database to accept connections, report that the database is ready, notice that the database is completely empty, and then begin installing the full schema from scratch. It is doing, automatically, all the setup you would otherwise do by hand. From there, it keeps going on its own. It applies every database migration in order, creates your administrator account, and, because we asked for it, seeds the demo data. A migration, if that word is new to you, is just a small, repeatable change to the database's structure. Running them in order is how the schema gets built up in the first place and, later, kept up to date. Keep your eye out for the line that announces Install Complete. And this is the part you must not miss. Just above that Install Complete line, the installer prints your new admin credentials inside a boxed banner, the username, which is admin, and the temporary password it generated just for you. Copy that password now, you will need it in the very next step. If you ever lose it, do not worry. It stays in the container log, and you can retrieve it at any time by running Docker compose logs app and grepping for the word password. It is single use, though. The app will require you to replace it the first time that you sign in. So, let us sign in. Open a web browser and point it at your host on port 8081. TicketsCAD welcomes you with a clean, dispatch-ready login screen and a day or night theme you can choose. You will also see a yellow banner warning that the connection is not fully encrypted. That is expected here because we are reaching the server over plain HTTP, and we will cover HTTPS at the very end. In the username field, type admin, and for the password, paste the temporary one you just copied out of the log. Now click Log In. Because that first password was machine-generated, TicketsCAD stops and makes you choose your own before going further, a sensible security default. The form has 3 fields: re-enter the temporary password as the current password, then set a new password and confirm it. The rule is a minimum of 8 characters, with at least 1 letter and 1 number. Click Change Password and you are dropped straight into the live dispatch view. You are in. Let us take a quick tour. This is the dashboard, the dispatcher's home base. Because we seeded the demo data, it is already alive with content, a panel of active incidents, a roster of units with their current status, a live map of the operating area, and a grid of movable widgets that you can rearrange to match the way your own team likes to work. One page worth visiting right after any install is the System Status page. You will find it under the Config button, the gear icon, in the top navigation. At a glance, it gives you a green light, the database is connected, the PHP runtime and web server are healthy, disk and sessions are fine, all systems operational. Optional integrations you have not set up, like the radio and location trackers, simply show as not configured. When the core cards read OK, your deployment is sound and ready to use. Before we finish, a few things worth knowing for the long run. First, your data is safe. Everything of value lives in named Docker volumes, the database itself, uploaded files and photos, the map tile cache, and the encryption keys, and those volumes persist independently of the containers. Your data survives a restart, and it survives a full rebuild of the image. Simply stopping the stack never erases it. Day to day, you will lean on a handful of commands. Docker compose ps shows you what is running. Docker compose logs -f follows the output live. Docker compose restart app bounces just the application. And Docker compose downstops everything, while carefully leaving your data volumes untouched. To take a database backup at any time, you can run MariaDB dump inside the database container and redirect it to a file. When a new version is released, upgrading is just 2 commands, git pull to fetch the latest code, and Docker compose up --build once more. On startup, the app reruns its migrations automatically, bringing the database schema up to date without dropping anything that is already there. One essential backup habit: always back up the database volume and the keys volume together, because the keys are what decrypt the sensitive fields inside the database. One of them is useless without the other. And that is a complete TicketsCAD deployment, from an empty box to a working dispatch console, driven by a single command. The full documentation lives in the repository at docs/docker.md, and it includes a dedicated production section on putting the application behind HTTPS with the reverse proxy, using strong passwords, and keeping the database port private. Everything you need for a real internet-facing installation. Thanks for watching. TicketsCAD is free and open source, and questions, bug reports, and contributions are all genuinely welcome over on GitHub. Now go and stand up your own dispatch console. Remember, it only takes one command.